yes, we did the up to number 10, or 9 at least. Kuf Tzadi Zayin. Well, we did remember recently we skipped some chapters. Recently we skipped some short chapters in order to do this section on Tshuva. Okay? So we're here on this chapter on Tshuva in Orchot Tzaddikim, and at this section of the chapter he's enumerating a list of, I believe, was it 20 things which are associated with a person's doing tshuva. And we're up to the 10th one. So on Kuf Tzadi Zayin, you have Ha'asiri. The first one is that he has to work very hard on regretting when he did wrong. The second one is to leave behind the transgression. The third one is to feel upset. Right? Upset over having lost what he had in order to regain it. The fourth one was feeling regret, not in the realm of emotion, but in the realm of deed. Yes, which means actually physically feeling remorse over the things that he did wrong. The fifth one is worry, concern about the future if he continues along this way. The sixth one is feeling embarrassment over having done it wrong. The seventh one is feeling humility in one's heart as a result of having done this wrong deed. And therefore, rather than rebelling, he'll humbly ask God for forgiveness. The eighth is to be humble indeed, not just with one's approach, internal approach, but in one's deed. Meaning, person who's upset about his spiritual stature will dress more modestly, and so forth and so on. The ninth one is to work very hard on breaking one's taivas, because even things which a person engages in, which are permitted, will cause him ultimately to look for things, enjoyment in things that are forbidden. That's the ninth. Yeah. And the 10th is what we're up to now, Kuf Tzadi Zayin. Hasiri lahashiv pa'aloi. Ketzad, amistakil barayos, one who looks, for example, upon things which are forbidden sexual relationships, people with which there are forbidden sexual relationships, a man and a woman and a man, vice versa. Ishnayek b'seichul shinayim. He should lower his eyes. B'lashon hara, yasek b'torah. He's involved in lashon hara. He has to correct that by being engaged in Torah. B'chol eiver ve'ever shechata yishtadel l'kayim bo mitzvahs. And with any organ of his body that he transgressed, he should try with that organ, that part of his body, to do a mitzvah. That's what it means by lahashiv pa'aloi. Means to return through correcting the actual body part with which he transgressed. Therefore the sages said, the righteous, with the same instrument through which they transgressed, they seek favor. The sages said, if you made packages of transgressions, also kenegdam chavilos shel mitzvos, make packages of mitzvos. If one's legs run quickly to do transgressions, let them run to a devar mitzvah, let them run to shul. A mouth that spoke evilly, so he should train his mouth to speak truthfulness. And let him only speak with words of wisdom. If his hands were responsible for spilling blood, innocent blood, let him open his hand to the poor. And I would not be surprised if the author also has in mind here, spilling dam naki is referring to the white blood. Yeah, that body fluid that's responsible for maintaining life through reproduction. One who spills that blood, that innocent blood, can rectify having done so by giving charity with his hand instead. Einaim ramos, his hands are elevated, let him be humble and lower his eyes. Lev chayresh machshavos oven, if his heart is constantly scheming, beliboy yitzpoin imrei Torah, let him place in his Torah, let him place in his heart the words of Torah. So they're saying that a person should return to Hashem commensurate to what he did wrong. If he transgressed with any particular body part, let him correct that transgression by using that body part for a mitzvah. The 11th, Chipus Drachov, let him look into his ways. As it says, Nach besa drachenu v'nach koira v'nashuva ad Hashem. We will look into our ways and return to Hashem. V'chipusu, this searching is, sheyivdok atzmo min ha'averei she'asa b'yomav, let him check himself regarding the transgressions that he's done. V'yesh b'zei to'eles l'shlosha dvarim, and this has 3 practical, tangible, positive results. Ho'echad, the first one is, sheyiskor kol ha'dvarim shechata behem v'yisvadei al kulam. Since he's investigating, searching into the deeds of all of his life, so he will remember what he's done wrong and do tshuva on them. Because just the vidui, the admission to having done these things wrong, that itself is a major factor of getting atonement. Hasheni, the second advantage, toelis, that there is in investigating one's ways, looking into one's ways, the sheni, sheyiskor kama yesh lo averos v'hatoim, he'll remember how many transgressions he actually has. Ubezeh yosif hachna, and this will cause him to continue to be humble, because he remembers his misdeeds. Hashlishi, the third, kiaf al pishu mekabel alav la'azoy v'chet, even though he accepts upon himself to depart from transgressing, tzarich leidah hadvarim shechoto lehem, he still has to know what he did wrong. In order to make some protective fence against these things that he's already transgressed. So even if he's done tshuva and he's accepted upon himself he's not going to do it again, he still has to remember the things that he did wrong, because it points out to him his weak points. And in this way, he's going to safeguard himself from doing these things again. That's very important, because you might think, once a person's done something wrong, Chas v'shalom, and then he does tshuva, and he regrets what he has done wrong, and he accepts the fact that he's not going to do it again, it would be better if he not think about it anymore. Because if he thinks about it, then he's likely to be drawn into doing it again. He's going to be stirred into being interested in doing it again. So he's coming to tell you, even though that's true, there is such a havamina, not to think about it, because a person might become drawn to do it again. Still, it's important to have in mind, that this is a point of weakness, and he has to address it and be aware of it in order to safeguard himself from doing it again. So I guess the difference is this, that if he's thinking about it in a way which is going to cause him to remember it, and then be interested in it, and then stir up the desire to do it again, that's clearly bad. And it's probably better that he not think about it, even if his intention is to safeguard himself, because he knows by thinking about it, he's just going to be drawn into doing it again. But if he knows that he's not going to be drawn into it, and he certainly shouldn't think about it too much, just in general, I know I have that situation, but if he goes dwelling on the details, he's likely to be drawn in. So just think about it only very generally to know, to be aware, this is a problem. Because it's easier for a person to fall back into transgressing into the things that he's used to doing, and because of his habit in doing them, they become less stringent in his eyes. Plus the fact that if he did something like this regularly, it's an indication that that's a particular weakness of his. Having acted upon that weakness and transgressed, he actually weakens his resistance against it, because it becomes less severe in his eyes. So now that he's done tshuva, he still has to be extra careful. It's like a sick person who starts to get well. He has to be very careful during that transition period, becoming sick to becoming well again, not to do anything that's going to cause him to become sick again. So a person who's been cooped up all time inside because he's ill, he starts to get better. You're not going to say, go outside and have a breath of fresh air when it's cold outside. He's not strong enough for that. He has to become fully cured, and then once he becomes strong enough, the fresh air will help him. But it would actually be better to be in stale air, even though it's not so healthy, but it's warm because of his weakness. It would be better to be in stale air than to go give him some healthy dose of fresh air when that fresh air is too cold. So too, one who is sick from transgression, when he starts to do tshuva, he has to be very careful. So let's say you have a person who has lived most of his life in a non-religious, unobservant way. And he, in order to rectify his ways, has to start learning about the Torah's path, the Torah's teachings, what's considered to be right and wrong. And he comes into yeshiva. Now that yeshiva is obviously going to be a very sterile environment because it's intended to preserve the spiritual well-being of the people who are there. And a person might say, this is unhealthy. Certainly it wasn't God's intention, some people might say, and it might be true for some people, it wasn't God's intention that I be in a yeshiva all day long, every day for the rest of my life. I have to work, I have to support myself, I'm supposed to get married and have children. That means I'm going to be out, involved in the world in a way which is more than I'm involved here in the yeshiva. So since that's the case, I might as well just go now. No. Why? Because the person is still in a state of becoming cured, as it were. And therefore, it would be better to be in the sterile environment, even though it might be a bit claustrophobic, even though the air might be a little stale, meaning it doesn't have within it the variety of things that people are engaged with. But he's not currently ready to go and breathe that variety and still maintain his commitment to the Torah. After it becomes well, then it might be appropriate to expose the person to the environment, right? To the environment. The elements. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, expose yourself to the elements that exist outside. Yeah. For certain people, that might not be appropriate at all. It might be better, in fact, that if they can, they spend the rest of their days connected into yeshiva as much as possible. But that's certainly not relevant for everybody. The point is, even for the people that's not relevant for, it would be better for at least a temporary situation where they're kind of being doctored back into health. Yes, that they be protected from the outside elements, so that they gain enough strength and health to ultimately be able to expose themselves to their outside elements and remain healthy. And that's what he means here. If a person starts to become healthy, he has to be very careful. He has to be very careful. He's used to interacting with people in ways and in places at times which are inappropriate to the Torah. So he has to be removed from all of that in order to correct himself. And once he does so, then he can go back to interacting with people, but now make proper decisions about who and when and in what context and so forth and so on. Very good analogy, I think. Daf Kuf Tzadiches. We're up to the 12th one. Sheyachkor ve'yeda godel ha'onesh l'chol echad mi'avonosav. He should investigate and appreciate, learn the severity of all of the specific transgressions that he's done. For which one he could be liable for the lashes. Or Mises Beis Din, or he could be liable, God forbid, to be put to death by Beis Din. Or Kores, or could be spiritually cut off. When he knows how the severity of the transgression, his heart will become commensurately bitter according to the severity of what he's done wrong, and he will add his humility in terms of doing tshuva. So he has to know not only about what he's done and whether it's right or wrong, but if it's wrong, right, just how wrong it really is. In order to be able to do proper tshuva on it, you have to appreciate the severity of it. It's not correct to say, well, I don't, I can't be bothered by knowing exactly how severe it is, and I just know I did it wrong, so I'm not going to do it anymore. No, if you don't understand the severity of it, you won't address it properly, right? It's like telling a person, when you cross the street, it's dangerous. When you cross the street, there might be danger, so you have to be careful. So the person's, he's not. Yeah, the person might, be careful about it. If you warn the person, you say, crossing the road is so dangerous that you could actually be killed. So he's going to take it much more seriously. So therefore, it's important for a person to know he can't, just like he can't put his head in the sand like an ostrich and blind himself to whether it's right or wrong. So when it's wrong, he can't blind himself to what the severity of that wrongness is. He has to know. It is possible that if this person goes into how serious it is and starts reading about all of the very terrible punishments that are associated with what he's done wrong, and the result of that, he's going to go out of his mind. He's going to just get totally turned off and blown out. And he says, you know what? Whatever, reject the whole thing. So it's probably better that he not know exactly how severe it is, and just know that look, this is something wrong, and you have to regret it, and you're not going to do it again. If you start going into detail just how wrong it is with this particular person, the result is going to be that he's going to fly off the handle and say it's too much for me, so I'm not going to correct this or anything else for that matter. In fact, I'm going to just throw it all away. So then it's probably not worth going into the details. And of course, there's a phrase of the sages which is, right, mutav shishogigin vayu mezidim. If there's something that somebody's doing wrong and they don't know that it's wrong, in certain circumstances, it's actually better that they not know that it's wrong, than risking a scenario where even if they know that it's wrong, they'll still continue to do it. There's mutav shishogigin. Better that if they're going to transgress anyway, meaning even if they know it's prohibited, they're still going to do it. So better that they do it accidentally than they do it on purpose. Yes, yeah. So it depends, and we say that something which is mefurish b'Torah, something which is explicitly forbidden in the Torah, we don't say that. Something that's explicitly forbidden in the Torah, we don't say that. Mutav shishogin al yemezid. You have to tell the person the Torah prohibits this. But if it's something which is not explicit, it's only learned out indirectly from the Torah, or if it's Dorbanan, and the person doesn't know, so if you have reason to believe that even if he knows, he's not going to refrain from doing it, better that he do it by mistake than let him know that it's forbidden and he's going to go ahead and do it anyway, even though he doesn't, because he doesn't care. So there are scenarios where, like I said, perhaps the person shouldn't know that it's forbidden, or even if he knows it's forbidden, perhaps he shouldn't know just how serious it is. If he's going to do it anyway, or as a result of that, he's going to come to transgress even more, then it's better that he doesn't know. Hashloisha asar, the 13th. He should work hard on accepting the fact that the transgressions, which are generally less severe, should be viewed by him as being just as severe as the ones who he considers to be severe. Like looking at ladies, and talking to them, or talking other types of nonsense, or just wasting his time, or mentioning God's name unnecessarily. All of these and many more like them, in the eyes of many people, even the eyes of great rabbis in our times, in his time, so many centuries ago, they're considered to be not so serious, to look at women, in a way of desire, or to be speaking to them and chatting with them lightheartedly, sometimes even flirting, with women, this type of stuff, that's forbidden. Right? Talking nonsensical, non-important things. So even in his generation, even great rabbis didn't view these things as seriously as they should. I think a rabbi who accepts, let's say, members of the community into his office, or takes questions and chides from people personally, has to really, is in a difficult situation because, on the one hand, Men have questions, women have questions. Often women's questions can be directed to the rabbi through the husbands, but sometimes women's questions can't be accepted. The rabbi has to decide, should accept women's questions only over the phone or in person, or if at all. If not, on the other hand, you don't want to make women feel like they're not important members of the community, which they are. And it's one thing if the women feel like men should not be gazing at them, but here, in the end of the day, it's a rabbi, and they're talking about words of Torah. Why shouldn't the rabbi accept me? I'm a member of the community. I also need, and her point of view is, she's a human being, a person, a personality, a member of the community. She also looking for spiritual guidance, which she might get from Rebbitzins, but there might be certain things that she only the rabbi can provide for. So she doesn't feel towards the rabbi anything, but the rabbi, might, as a man, generally might be more sensitive to looking at women. So he doesn't want to offend her need to have a connection to a rabbi. On the other hand, if he's, taking questions from women personally all the time, so he's seeing many women, and it's very hard for a person not to look at a person and judge that person looks intelligent or not, or that person is attractive or not. So it becomes very difficult. Do you not accept at all? And if you do, under what circumstances? And how do you establish a relationship with that person? Not look at all, but the person might be offended, or from time to time look at the person's kind of, side, but avoid eye contact. But if the person's not getting eye contact, they might not feel they're being paid attention to. So eye contact, right? Yeah, so imagine, that'd be very, very difficult. So, the different rabbis have different approaches, and each one's got to decide, to find, what seems to him to be the correct path for him. But it's not an easy, situation. So, unfortunately, people are people, and even rabbis are people. And, sometimes you hear situations where, rabbis are, seem to be involved in inappropriate behavior, at different levels of serious, maybe some of the accusations are not true, but some might be true. And you can think about a person, who is constantly, in contact, might ultimately, because of his own weaknesses, come to abuse the position where he's viewed as being, a rabbi and proper and a holy man and somebody that you can speak to personally about all types of different things. But over time, if a man is hearing certain things from women time and time again, he might come to weaken his guard and come to be attracted or think about women in a certain way. It's very difficult. And some people, it's not only, of course, rabbis, the same thing with doctors, or lawyers, it can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody. Of course, you expect more from a rabbi, but that's my point. Rabbis are human beings too. And sometimes even rabbis are suspected of being in improper situations. And therefore, it's very difficult. I'm just trying to figure out what he means here when he says even great rabbis of his generation don't take the idea of looking at women, improperly. They don't take that seriously enough. How can that be? But maybe a person might justify looking, for certain reasons, and then become accustomed to it, and therefore ultimately not take it seriously and even transgress as a result of that. There are 4 reasons why a person should view these seemingly light things as serious as well. A person, it's wrong to look and focus and contemplate the smallness of the transgression. It's a transgression, so it's wrong to focus on how small it is. Rather look at the greatness of the one who commanded it. Right? Mashal HaMelech, this can be compared to a king, who commanded to 2 of his servants, the one he said, bring to me drink, because he's very thirsty. The other one he commanded to bring something which he doesn't need so much. And And he warned each one, bring me what I am asking. In the one case, it's drink, which he needs very much. In the other case, it's something which doesn't need very much. But he warned them. He said, if you don't bring it. Certainly, in either case, if the person doesn't do what he was told, he's liable, for treason, the death penalty. Because they punish him whether he stole a little bit or a lot, he still stole. Each one is transgressing the command of the king. So too God commanded regarding all of the Torah Shemores, called the mitzvah. Guard all of these commandments which I give you today. Cursed is he who does not fulfill the words of this Torah, and to do the commandments. Even though some are greater and some are less. Some are more stringent and some are less. But the point is, you're supposed to keep it. So, whether it seems significant, whether it seems more severe or not, is really not the point. The point is you have to keep everything. Hasheni, the second factor is, Kimisha oiver hakola harbe pamim. Another reason why you have to treat the seemingly less stringent things as if they were stringent, because sometimes, by transgressing the light things many times, azi chamura, then it becomes severe. It's true, transgressing it once might not be particularly severe, but once you do it again and again and again and again and again, he's saying more than that. The 10 times that he does it equals the one time of doing something else. There's something which is very severe, another thing which is less severe, right? He does the thing which is severe only once in a while, because it's very severe, and he wouldn't come to do that very often. Let's say once a year. But the other thing he does 100 times throughout the year. It could be that the 100 times that he does the insignificant things actually adds up to being more severe than the one thing that he only does once a year. Ki yitztarfu anoshim al kol pam v'fam, because the punishment will accrue each time. Hashlishi, the third reason why a person has to treat the seemingly slight things as severe, that's the shalishi. That's your point, Mordechai. Because when he gets used to doing these transgressions, because they're not so severe, then they come to him as if they're permitted. He won't protect himself from them anymore. He becomes like a person who is a heretic, at least regarding this thing. Yeah. Amumar. You're a heretic. A heretic? Me? Who believe in God? I daven. I put on tefillin. I do all the mitzvahs. Oh, that's true. But what about this thing that you transgress again and again and again and again and again? Almost as if, as far as you're concerned, it's permitted. What, for that thing you're going to call me a mumar? Yeah. You're a mumar. It's a mumar la devar chad, but you're a mumar. Haravi. Ki derech hayetzer, the fourth reason, shu notzeach b'davar kal, az yenatzeach b'davar chamur. A fourth reason why you should pay as much attention to the small things as the big thing is because when you actually succeed in guarding the small thing, it gives you the strength and the confidence to guard the bigger thing as well. But if you let the small things go, you're just that much closer to letting the big things go as well. If you guard the small things, then you're that much closer to guarding the big things. So the sage just said, "Hevi zohir b'mitzvah kala k'b'mechamura." Right? And furthermore, they said, "Shemitzvah goreres mitzvah, v'avero goreres avero." A mitzvah brings about another mitzvah. Applying any mitzvah can bring about another mitzvah, even if that one mitzvah is small, and even if the mitzvah it brings about is big. But a mitzvah can bring about a mitzvah. So even a small mitzvah can bring about a big mitzvah. And the converse is also true. An avera goras avera, an avera brings about an avera. It doesn't specify which one, implying even a small avera, it's just a teeny one, can bring about another avera, a huge one. If you do a little mitzvah, so that gives you the strength and the strength, the incentive, the strength, and the what's the word I'm looking for? The confidence that you can do another mitzvah, and therefore you do another one. But if a person does a transgression, right? So this small transgression can cause him to do other transgressions. Why? Because every transgression that he does, he gets used to transgressing. And his custom of transgressing can lead him to even larger transgressions as well. So that person doesn't lie. He just doesn't tell the truth. He didn't lie. He just didn't tell the truth. He didn't reveal the truth. But now that because he hasn't revealed the truth, the implications being something other than what is true, yeah? If it goes one step further, in order to cover for the fact that he didn't reveal the truth, he's likely to distort the truth. He hasn't told a lie, he's just distorted the truth. But now that he's distorted the truth, yeah, there's a difference, right? In one case, he hasn't told the truth. He hasn't told the truth. And he knows that the implication is that somebody's going to understand the scenario as being X, Y, or Z. Now, he didn't outright tell a lie, like I said, he just withheld the truth. But now, in the same scenario, based on this person's perception of the scenario being X, Y, and Z, something's going to happen, he's going to tell somebody, he's going to do something, and now it's going to come back to this person, right? And what's he likely to do? What's he going to say? Right? I didn't actually tell the whole truth. Yeah, he's likely now to try and get his way out of it by distorting the truth. He's going to say something now, yeah, which is not a lie. It's just a distortion of the truth. So temporarily, he gets the blame off of him because through this distortion, he's able to explain the seeming contradiction behind what he didn't reveal and what other people understood in the reality. So now he's going to distort. Oh, okay, fine. Oh, so it wasn't actually like X, Y, and Z. You mean it was like X, A, Y, A, and Z, A. Yeah. Okay? Fine. So now they act on XA, on X, Y, and Z, A, yeah? And now a little bit. So now something happens which shows that even X, Y, and Z, A doesn't work. So they come back to him, right? What's he going to do? He's going to lie. He's going to lie. So you go from small to bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, of course, you don't have to. The person can always say, from the outset, he could always say, it's true. I didn't actually lie, but it's true. I didn't actually tell the whole truth. And before this gets out of hand, I should be honest and say that in truth, what really happened was this. He could, and even if he didn't do that, and he ends up distorting the truth, but then it comes out to where he's going to have to really outright lie to cover up. At that point, he could also back out and say, I've been misleading. I've been misleading. Initially, I didn't tell the truth. Then I distorted the truth. I've been misleading. I don't want to lie, and therefore, I have to clarify that. But it takes a lot of courage to do that. Once a person's out on a limb, he doesn't want to discredit himself, so he's likely to go into the lie mode. Okay, so that brings us up to number 14. You must confess, own up to what you've done wrong. How would you summarize 13? Well, it's quite a bit longer, yes, but he's just saying that a person has to weigh up the relative significance between the transgressions and the relative transgression, the weight of the severity. Consider insignificant transgressions to be like significant ones, in order to avoid the scenario of Avera Goras Avera. Habarsa vidui shneimar hisvadei asher chato aleh v'yesh choiva alav lahaskir avonos avoisav. His transgressions and even those of his forefathers. V'lami yisvadei al chatoisav asav. Why should he recall those of his fathers? Mishum shehu ne'enash kishe'oichez ma'aseh avosav biyado. Because he can be punished for the component of his father's misdeeds in his own hands. And that's what it says. V'hisvadu es avoinam ve'es avoin avoisom. They shall confess their transgressions and those of their fathers. Based on the Gemara in Brachos, which says that how do we reconcile the two different verses where one says pakod avoin avois al banim, God will deliver the transgressions of the fathers on the sons. Yet another verse says lo yumsu banim al avosam, children won't be punished on account of their fathers. Contradiction. The Gemara reconciles the steer between the two verses by saying the one is where avonosem biyadem, ochzim maseh avosem biyadem, and the other one is where they're not. Meaning, children can be punished for the misdeeds of their fathers when the children continue the misdeeds of the fathers themselves. It's like they're giving their approval. I'm doing the bad things my dad did is a way of affirming his agreement with the bad things not only that he does but his father did as well. So in order to do tshuva, a person has to do tshuva on his part and also on the part of his deeds of his fathers. He's got to repudiate his own deeds and also dissociate himself with the misdeeds of his father. Be careful the time of confession that he should fix in his heart to stop those ways. Because if he returns to them and he doesn't discard them, he's like a person who goes into a mikveh with a source of impurity in his hands as he's immersed. It's not going to help. Confession, tshuva, is like immersing oneself in the mikveh. But if you continue holding these things, taking hold of them while you're in the mikveh and come out with them while in your hand when you come out, it hasn't done anything. Same thing with the transgressions. Certainly the transgression is like the impure object. And clearly the immersion in the mikveh won't help when you're holding on to the sheretz, the impure object. So the same thing goes with tshuva. It won't help if you're still holding on to the desire to do these things. Yeah. And we mentioned the other day, even if he knows he's probably going to do it again, but right now at least he's got in mind that he doesn't want to do it again, there the tshuva will help. Okay, let's stop here.